Moving on, marketing is no longer just about selling a product. It's about creating culture, shaping emotions, and building brands that endure. In an era of fleeting attention spans and ever-evolving consumer expectations, what does it take to craft ideas that truly resonate? To unlock these answers, we bring together three creative powerhouses who have mastered the art of brand building and impactful conversation. Joining Devika Bulchandani is the legendary Padma Shri Piyush Pandey, Chief Advisor, Ogilvy India. A titan of Indian advertising, Mr. Pandey is the creative force behind iconic campaigns that have defined generations and shaped cultural narratives. Chairing this session is Shubhranshu Singh, CMO, CVBU, Tata Motors. Please welcome them on stage with a huge round of applause. Over to you.
Thank you very much. I must say, for those of you who know a bit about me, I am an unpaid journalist, and this is in continuation of those duties. When they said I had to ask questions, I said, yippee, I get to be on camera, on television, and only ask questions. It is not easy because no sooner had Devika begun to speak, they pulled me out and started wiring me up like a suicide bomber, and now I have an earpiece in which people are barking all sorts of instructions. So it is not easy. But let me begin. Devika, that was very inspiring. I have now time for only a few questions. So the first one is to you. Is the need to inspire purpose or to be associated with purpose an inherent quality of brands? Or is it something that you cultivate once you realize that you could do more when you advance a purpose, associate with a purpose, own a purpose?
I think this is sort of the existential debate that we have in marketing. And it's a very simple way to look at it from my perspective, which is purpose has to come from the business. Because the minute we start thinking about purpose coming from the brand, we can make a purpose up. But if purpose isn't quintessential to the product that you sell, the core of the business model, then it becomes a marketing in a sort of purpose washing. So for Dove, purity of the soap, the purity of the soap was why we could get to beauty without artifice, pure beauty, real beauty that became. So I just think you have to go back to the core business. If we start just thinking about purpose through the lens of brand strategy, then we can very often fall into a trap. And does every product need a purpose? Not necessarily. You can provide joy. Joy could be, doesn't have to be something much deeper.
That's right. Great, thank you. Piyush, the speakers earlier in the day were on and on about artificial intelligence, digital disruption, learning. A very large proportion of advertising has become performance advertising. By the way, I have been seized of these questions for the last 3 days, and I have been trying. It was futile effort to get across to Piyush and tell him that these are the questions I'm asking him. I made a last desperate bid just an hour ago, and he said, partner, question out mat karo, paper out mat karo. So that's Piyush for you. It is truly extempore. Performance advertising versus brand advertising.
Break the rules. I'll come back to your performance later.
Yes.
But taking off from what Devika was saying on purpose. See, purpose doesn't have to be a sad thing. Doesn't have to be about deprivation. Purpose can be, I mean, so many people talk to us these days and say, I'm so stressed. Now, what the hell are you stressed about? I don't know. But we have to de-stress them. Look at the, how many of you love the Amul hoardings around the country? I do. Now, they're about putting a smile on your face. And if you want to attach a product thing, you can say butter is about joy. But those ads do not say anything. They just make you feel happy and you feel good about the brand and you are predisposed about buying that brand. Similar performance marketing people ask me about. Now performance marketing, the rest of the people are what? They don't want to perform or what? Yeah. To my mind, everyone wants to do performance marketing. And the way I understood, I asked a number of people, including Prem, who is my planning partner. I said, please explain to me what the hell is this performance marketing? And he explained that you put things, like you put things in a shelf and somebody writes something behind it. So, okay, that reminds me of the road from Bombay to Pune, where there, for a kilometer there are hundreds of people who have cut those watermelons and you see red balls everywhere. So I asked him, is this performance marketing? So yeah, in a way it's performance marketing because one guy is saying, okay, I'll give you one potato free with this or this and that. And I said, But the guy who actually sells is the guy who's singing a lovely song along with it. Ki why you should buy that tarboos of his. And that to me is advertising support to selling things. It can't be putting things on a shelf. To me, that is the difference between what performance marketing is supposed to be and what I think performance marketing should be. That if you are able to sell to me by doing a nice product message, you are better off. That's what I think.
I think performance marketing is the plumbing. Right? That is, and now we've become so obsessed with the plumbing that we've forgotten that there's got to be something that lives on top of the plumbing. Are we building a kitchen on top of the plumbing? Or what are we doing with that? So the focus has become too much about that, just performance marketing, and nobody's actually paying enough attention to, through those pipes, and the data and the techno, what are we giving to people? How are we making them feel? Because we go from performance marketing to ROI. Right? And the middle bit of it, we have forgotten, and it's become nonsense and shit. Right? That's the truth.
Inside the plumbing.
Inside the
Nonsense and shit is clear enough. I have a question for the both of you. It's to do with this surge in short form videos and the fact that a lot of what people consume comes filtered, algorithmically manipulated to an extent in a good way. And that feed is always on. And it's almost as if your finger has a mind of its own, deciding what to pause on, what to double tap, and so on. Now, is that inherently cramping creative joy for higher order things like purpose? Can you do a great job with short form advertising on social platforms, and that's pretty much the bulk of what people consume in their daily lives? Or is there a real value to long form, old world content for which a lot of people have nostalgia but very little time?
You know, again, it depends. Can you do great things with short form? I believe you can, right? And I say, when you're doing great things with short form, I call it better, faster laughter. So how can you take 6 seconds, 10 seconds, 15 seconds to put that smile on my face, to make me laugh, to do something? But there's value to stupidness and silliness in the world as well. It's not all deep. If we want to do something like Dove, where we're really trying to change a fundamental, deeply entrenched behavioral pattern or a societal pattern, that takes longer form. So I think there's place for both. Where it's dangerous is not recognizing what is the right form or what is the right length, if you say, for the right message, because that becomes important. I think we mix that up a lot to say we're going to do a much deeper message in short form, and then we're going to take 3 minutes to do something that should be done in 15 seconds.
I think it's a question of how well you do it. Yeah. If all of us have seen small cartoon strips of R.K. Lakshman, just 5x1 or whatever the size is, in that he could be very sarcastic, he could be very funny, he could be a great observer. If you're that good, you can do a short form. If you need something, as Devika said, to convey something where you want me to feel, it's not about length, it's about how well you impact. People talk about opportunities to see. It's not opportunities to see, it's opportunities to impact. What did you do in that little 1 second, or in 60 seconds, or 1 minute? That's the way it goes all the time. And I think if you're not able to do that, people talk about, somebody spoke about small attention spans of the new generation. If you do something good, they will stay with you. If you're doing stupid, they will have smaller attention spans. They're not stupid, they're saying, okay, today I'll only see for 3 seconds. No. Get them involved, get them engaged, they will watch you.
I have a question for you, being a CEO of a global firm and a person of Indian origin. They did not tell me to cue via the earpiece. Do you see a homogenization across the world, or is there a unique East aesthetic and a West aesthetic, and the twain shall never meet?
I see the West thinking that the world is homogenized, but not being from the West, I know it is not. So, and I was talking about it, I was with Prabha, the CEO of Colgate yesterday, and we were talking about this dynamic. The West tends to think that everything that gets made, created in the West works everywhere in the West. But the truth is there are markets like India and China and Southeast Asia, there's markets in Latin America that are fundamentally different. That are just fundamentally different. The beauty test may be in certain other markets, but it is not in the US or UK or Europe. So I think there is a lot of difference in the work that we do. And if we don't recognize the work that we do is different, then we become ineffective, essentially. So, one thing I've been talking about a lot is Ogilvy is one of the largest agencies. Every time we talk about it, it's like, 94 countries and 122 offices and global network. And I've been thinking about this concept a lot to say we may be the largest global network, but we're local everywhere. And you cannot connect with consumer bases if you don't actually understand the nuance of that culture. So, no.
It's very difficult for you to understand the Thailand way of humor. It is amazingly good. You're completely mad.
Wow.
Mad stuff, but it's completely fantastic for that market. And also, on the other edge, is Thailand's emotional bet. It can make you cry. They do some stuff for life insurance. Every time they make you cry, and they make people around the world cry.
Piyush, you'll to cry at everything, though.
Every good thing.
Now, I'll speak for a second as a client. Piyush and I have worked on several campaigns. I've learned from him. He's been a friend, guide, philosopher. But when a bright idea emerges and the agency brings it to a client, one of the difficult things to do is to accept the inherent risk in it. And for things like Campaign for Real Beauty or, really moving the purpose needle, there is risk in that proposition. So what does it take to convince clients to go along and to take those risks?
I always say that the biggest champions of creativity and risk-taking are not sitting at the agency. They're actually sitting in the client organization. So what we're always looking for, what I'm always looking for when we have an idea, and there'll be teams who say, we can't sell it, they think it's too risky, is finding the person in the organization who has the appetite for risk, but most importantly, who has the vision and the courage to punt on something. So there's no data. We can test something to death, and in my life, I've tested things that have tested really well and have been total flops, and then things that have tested very badly and have been total successes. Right? So I always say, find the person. You are all the ones who are ultimately the real visionaries, the true heroes, because you're putting your money, you're putting your brand, you're putting your product. Right? So,
and as an agency, you're the one who's more scared. You don't go with a good idea to clients. You are scared. And suddenly you find somebody who says, but why don't we do what you just vaguely mentioned? And you say, hello, he's ready for it. So I think risk is always there if you don't have a proof. But everyone is not stupid enough to only look for the proof. They look for the excitement, the way it touches them, things happen. And we have seen it together, we have seen it, everyone has seen it. Somewhere or other where you didn't see logic and you say, but it makes something to me, it makes it happen. And play for it and you'll win. I think no guts, no glory.
Correct. No guts, no glory. Piyush, my next question is for you. What is the next generation of advertising leadership going to take? Because people talk about artificial intelligence and idea generators, and anybody can write a poem in any format and so on and so forth. Now, a tiger lives so long as its teeth. If technology is going to be the dentures in your mouth, then what does it take for an advertising agency to excel? That is one question. Secondly, if you were to rewind back to when you were 25, would you do things any differently? And do you have any regrets about how you have gone about life?
I think the answer to both your questions is the same. The future generation, or if I was 25, I would expect people to address the consumer and not himself or the client, and magic will happen. If you think that that person who's going to listen to you you are going to make difference to that person, then you are creating magic, whether it's with technology, without technology, anything. Did you move anyone? Somebody said in that, the gentleman in the video, that were you able to convince the guy next door? Were you able to convince your mom? Were you able to convince anybody? I think whatever plumbing you use, the tap must have good beer coming out.
Devika, people are interested in knowing a bit about your journey. I mean, it's been written about and spoken a lot about, especially since the announcement in India. But how much of it has to do with purposeful action? How much of it was happenstance? Are you a believer in destiny? Would you do things differently? What were the shots when you began life that a woman of Indian origin would become global CEO at Ogilvy?
There were a lot of, I think there was a lot of intention and a lot of happy accidents. It wasn't all intention or all happy accidents. And my son always says, people say, your mother has such a clear vision about where she wants to go. And he's like, no, she's a goldfish. She can only think of what's coming next. This is the only way she can do it. And that's actually quite true, that I've been very focused on making sure whatever it is that was in front of me, I had to do really well, as opposed to obsessing about what's going to happen 20 years from now, or even actually focusing on what happened 10 days ago. And I don't know whether that's nature, nurture, but it's always been my way of operating. But there is a moment that was a very transformational moment for me. I left India and I wanted to go to the US because I wanted to earn a living. I wanted to work. I wanted to be somebody. I didn't want to just get married. And so it was very important to me. All my siblings live here, my family, my in-laws, everybody's here. So that I knew I had in me, that I wanted to do something. But about 8 years ago, there was a women's leadership group, and there were a couple women in there there were some of them I knew. And it was a Q&A, and I wasn't in this position, I was in a different position. And one of them just said, would you ever like to be a global CEO of a company? And I don't have a problem talking or being spontaneous. And I froze. I couldn't speak. Because my head wanted to say yes, but everything that I was trained as a woman is, you can't say it out loud, that's so crass, that's wrong. And I literally, I remember this moment, I was shaking. And I knew why she had asked me that question, because she wanted me to say yes. For everybody, not just for myself. And then literally after 4 minutes, and there were moderators in this group, they were staring at me and they said, Devika, Dev, as everybody calls me in the US. And I just couldn't speak. And finally I said, yes, I would. And the minute I verbalized it, it was like the weight was lifted. I can't even explain to you, but it was the most pivotal transformational moment. And my advice to everybody always is to say, if you can't say it to yourself, how can you ever be it? So if you want to be something, you have to say it to yourself, and then you have to vocalize it.
Right. Well, I must say the clock there prompts me that there is 2 minutes and 20 seconds left, and I think I'm right on time. I'm getting good at this.
Very good at it.
And I'm enjoying this. And they've shut up as well. So, last question to the both of you, and Piyush is slippery on this one, but I must nail him on. One favorite campaign, the ad or campaign that you are most proud of or like the best, either or?
Well, I actually showed it to you. Fearless Girl. It's very hard. She still stands there. She's my third child. It happened right after Hillary lost, and women were really feeling, and I was feeling like there's no hope for women in the world. And that's for a whole other conference and story about how she got done and put there, and it wasn't for the faint of heart. But the most important thing for me is she's always going to be there across the New York Stock Exchange as a symbol that women have a right to be in the economic boardrooms of the world as much as any men do. And here's the real truth behind that. Companies that are run by women do better. It's the truth.
Yeah, I've shared it with you. My most favorite campaign is the work that I was doing for 10 years on polio, and on March something 2014, India was declared polio free. That will always be the campaign for me.
Well, that's all that we have time for, but do give it up for Devika and our very own Piyush Pandey.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Devika Bulchandani, Piyush Pandey, and of course, Shubhranshu Singh for joining us here today and for such a power-packed session.